Well, President Obama and the mainstream media. What do you mean, Crane? Well, with all the things and all the concerns that we have, the president and the mainstream media is doing its level best to protect their hero who advances their ideology. Also, a part of this is what was said by David Axelrod and Chuck Todd in detailing the analysis of the election in Florida with David Jolly defeating Alex Sink, Republican, Democrat, respectively. Now, I want to go back, and I'm going to throw a curveball, but Lene is all over it, I know, as well as Cedra. And I want to go back to cut number 10 and Chuck Todd analyzing the election in Florida for the victory for David Jolly in the special election. Roll it.
The question is whether is the president going to stagnate? Can he recover? I'm focused on four numbers here that, to me, that explain sort of this stagnation. And the question is, how does he pull out of the funk, right? You have 71% in our poll that say government is not working well or stagnant. You have 65% that say the country's heading in the wrong direction. 57% that say the country's still in a recession. By the way, and 49% believe that the health care law is a bad idea, as opposed to about 35% who call it a good idea. So that, I've been trying to figure out, it's like, what explains the president's 41%? And it's not one thing, it's everything.
All right. It's everything. And yeah, you look at how he's going to address those concerns, and he doesn't have an answer because he's tried the policy and it's only exacerbated the problem, and he keeps coming back with more of it, which is minimum wage, which is putting people out of work. I'll give you the survey by the end of the show, the latest one. I just heard about it on Cavuto with the person who ran the survey of CEOs that said half would cut back on their labor force. But then they did a more detailed analysis of these CEOs, and they said, okay, how about for you all running companies that actually have minimum wage workers? And 80% of them said they would cut back. You see, this is a job killer, yet he's advancing it. Why? Because he's saying, I want to stand up for the little guy. I want to stand up for the people that are on the edge of poverty. Well, we can break down the minimum wage, we can look at teenagers, and we can look at the fact that what the group he's actually talking about, he's really not talking about, and he's missed who's making the minimum wage. Also, we got to look at the fact 2/3 of the people earning minimum wage in the first year get a raise. I can go to numbers after numbers after numbers. I mean, the greater percentage of them are teenagers or between 16 and 25 who are looking at families are augmenting income for their families that are $50,000 plus a year. I mean, there's so many stats. We can play the games, but why is he doing this? And David Axelrod answers the question. As John McEnroe once said, answer the question. And then he said, called the person, whatever the name, after he asked about something. Well, David Axelrod actually answers the question of why, and he doesn't even know it, because he's detailing why Sink lost and what the Democrats must do to win in 2014 at the midterms. It's cut number 9, I believe. Roll it.
On the Obamacare issue, there's no doubt that I think Jeremy Peters had it right. It motivated the Republican base. Independent voters by 25 points or more supported Alex Sink's position on mending it and not ending it. So I think that, and I think the notion that Democrats can just walk away from that position that never ever works. So we're going to have to fight it out on that. We're going to have to fight it out on that issue. But the real challenge is, how do we get base voters, young people, minorities out in a general election,
but David,
in a midterm election?
How are you going to do it? How are you going to motivate your base voters? Well, you're going to see the war on women. He spoke to minorities, and remember, he's seeing you as colors. He's seeing you as grievance groups. That's the sad part. That's how the left looks politically at folks, and it's sad. It's identity politics, and when the Republicans engage in it, The Democrats listen, Americans, no hyphens, and let's look at it. We can exploit certain things. I think John Stossel has a program coming up Thursday night on the war on women and how bogus it is. I put out on the Facebook the I'm Not Bossy, I'm the Boss campaign. Condi Rice participated in this as well, talking about banning the word bossy because somehow it is a way to attack young girls and women from being assertive, okay? And I think it is stupid. I think it's silly. I think it's misguided, many reasons. I also think it turns women, young women, and women into a victim class, which is ridiculous and, again, insulting. Many great comments on this, responses, some agreeing, some disagreeing. Bryson, this is just feminism rearing its ugly head, wrote that. Chris asks, my question is, if the word bossy is banned, how will they enforce it? Camden, I'm just reading pieces of this, folks. Tell her to stop being so bossy by telling me I can't use that word. Chuck writes, I disagree with your assessment, as it is a misleading statement. The video provides a website and address, ban bossy, and the information, but I understand and agree with the underlying premise, which according to the campaign, and I'm jumping around here, to encourage leadership and achievement in girls. I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching leadership skills. Maybe the campaign should be reworked through the video so their intent is more clear. Yeah, I don't have a problem with leadership with girls in any way. I have a problem with turning girls into victims and then thinking that's going to advance them through leadership. Listen, this is playing in, and remember, this is all about planting the seed of division with the idea of looking at women differently. In the sense of victims. Really unfortunate. Rebecca wrote a wonderful piece, response on why women are not choosing to be in executive roles because they are the executive in the sense of raising the family. Now the father is being the head of the home, and I know how people in the outside the Christian community like to manipulate that and say it's anti-woman. No way is it. It's based on the respect for the women. Christ love your husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Nevertheless, raising kids, how awesome is that? Rebecca, great response. Appreciate it. Chris, wonderful response about saying, hey, another reason to turn off the television. I mean, these are great responses, and this is what you get from the Facebook page. Don't buy in to the manipulation of victimology wherever it is, with race, gender, or otherwise. Be an American without hyphens, and remember, you are a creation of God. Crane Durham's nothing but truth. AFR Talk.